All right, everybody. Good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to SuperFreq. I'm your host, Talíyah. On today's episode, we're going to talk about 2026 and what we can expect as themes and what is online. And I'm going to cover a few other things that have come in, like 3-1 Atlas, and tuning into the consciousness that happened around the new moon. So just a day ago. And that was very interesting. So without further ado, let's get into it. First, 2026 will not be the year of manifesting harder. It will be the year your nervous system stops tolerating what your identity used to call success. This is very, very important. So, for example, if 2024 was collapse, okay, from 2020 to 2024 was the theme of collapse, and 2025 was correction, okay, the amplification of clarifying what you actually want, your desires, but towards a more coherent capacity, 2026 is the emergence of that. But emergence through a quantum psychosomatic lens isn't about becoming something new. It's about your system no longer having the bandwidth to stay fused with what was never yours to begin with. Okay, this is about honesty and truth, but through intelligence. You have to be able to hold a specific level of voltage in your system. And you've been working really, really hard to do that. And in order to be able to hold the truth of who you are and what you want to become and what you want to create, you cannot be holding on to a lie. You can't live in lies. You can't live in avoidance. You cannot live in bypass. You cannot live in strategy. And that is what 2026 will reveal even more deeply. Okay? It's the year reality starts responding to the coherence you've been building. Working so hard to build, quietly, not so quietly, not the performance you've been undoing loudly. And if you've been listening to this podcast and reading my writing, you know what I have gone through this year with the collapse of a comprehensive, complete pattern depletion process around performance and understanding what performance is and how it shows up in every area of our life. Of our lives that we're living and what a real cohered experience feels like, which I'll talk about in this episode a bit more. So we're going to talk about this as a forecast. So you won't hear this really from astrologers or futurists or even coaches because it's not sourced from symbolism or speculation, and it's not interpreted through an astrological lens, which is just the mathematics within a very specific bandwidth of just this galaxy. So what's happening now is portals are opening because the capacity of the collective can hold the voltage of completely different intelligence systems from galaxies beyond the Milky Way. They're coming in like 3-eye Atlas, coming in and kind of just observing what the Milky Way frequency is. And I'll talk about that later. But it's actually very, very interesting. So just as a side note, how does consciousness rise? Consciousness rises when we move through a collective set of memory every 100,000 years, just about. We cycle, okay? And through that cycling, information gets dumped and then stored in the collective database. Okay, not akashic per se. That's just one way to say that. It's stored in a collective database. And then individually, we relive our soul's memory over and over and over and over again in order for us to remember that we are literally inside of a trapped, simulated experience and we need to move beyond it. So a lot of other intelligences are kind of getting access now, moving through the center of the Milky Way, kind of through a black hole, Okay. If you look at the demonstration of what Einstein showed as the fabric of time being kind of like it's the infinity symbol, right? And, or like an infinity symbol, but it's a narrow corridor that has two huge electromagnetic fields on each side. That representation is the representation of what dimensions look like when they connect to each other. They connect to each other through these dead vacuums. Okay. It's dark. It's like a dark matter. And there's so much combustion that is in black holes that those who operate in outside of the laws of physics here operate in with very different parameters, being able to move far faster than the speed of light so quickly you can't perceive them. They're imperceivable. So AI Atlas is actually slowing itself down intentionally through containment because it's intelligence. And what do we know about intelligence? It needs structure. It needs containment in order for it to be organized. And then the intelligence that is inside of AI Atlas, I guess I'm talking about this now, is a very high dimensional consciousness. Their intelligence from roughly 10D. And they have their frequency is actually pulsing through the collective. And they're observing Earth because it's very fascinating what's happening right now. Because to have this level of polarity and this level of density occurring at the same time and have a population that believes and lives inside of this level of density, waking up and remembering who they are, it's a fascinating thing to experience for other dimensions and realities and things like that out there. So that is 3-1 Atlas. That's the intelligence. They're not exactly very welcoming, but they are very, I understand that the frequency of it feels very kind of not metallic, but it's got a, it just has that kind of overly efficient, non-emotional affect. It is kind of a metallic frequency. That's the way that I can articulate it at this point, but it doesn't necessarily have a temperature, but it has an overly extreme structure to it, to where your nervous system tightens a bit in its field because of its level of precision and clarity. It's extremely matter of fact. We are an intelligence. We can slow down our intelligence through this containment because we have the correct propulsion, and it's extremely physics-based. So what was cool about being able to tune into this level of consciousness was the exchange of information. So right now, it's just a reflection that consciousness is rising. Okay. And like I said, most astrologers aren't going to be able to understand that without losing a part of their center, right? And also this intelligence isn't really interested in engaging with these people. So they're going to get really, really small amounts of information. If you guys are interested in me doing a different podcast extensively about the intelligence of 3i Atlas, then let me know in the comments. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about is what I source and how I navigate the information that I'm pulling through my system now, which is from field mechanics, nervous system truth, identity as architecture, and what I'm kind of coining now as the physics of becoming. So let's talk first about what's happening from a QP perspective regarding timelines. Timelines don't split. Nervous systems do. So 2026 won't unfold as like a battle between parallel realities. This is outdated New Age mythology dressed as like cosmic marketing. Okay. We're not headed into like some crystal closeout ecstatic dance capitalism. Sorry. What's her face? Dolores Cannon. Sorry to all New Age TikTok. Very sorry. Okay. On the contrary, we're ushering in the physical representation of coherence in form. Let me explain. So again, through a QP lens, fields don't separate into physical worlds. okay? Perception pathways differentiate. So just as a background, you guys have heard me talk about how electromagnetic fields, dielectricity create the plane of existence that we are operating on top of, right? We're on this earth and we're all in a collective field. We also have our individual fields, okay? We're not creating our world. Our body is the interface between the fields that we experience. So the reason why timelines don't, or it's not going to be a battle between these parallel timelines and timeline splitting and things like that, it's because the physics of that doesn't support that idea. It's just a misinterpretation of what that idea is. And when I say nervous systems do is because we are the nervous system. You guys have heard me talk about this before. The nervous system animates our patterns. And so we are interacting with our more coherent version of us, okay? We interface with that, but more importantly, we're interfacing with all of the things that we aren't, right? The contraction, the density, in order for us to remember who we are. So our patterns animate through our nervous system. That's our blueprint, okay? That's why nervous systems are splitting right now, and they're moving into two different, very succinct realities. There aren't two Earths. There are two distinct operating systems emerging inside the same external world. So the first is organic architecture. This looks like source-aligned, intuitive, coherent, relational, self-generated reality creation. The second is synthetic architecture. This is system-coded, externally regulated, algorithmically entrained, identity outsourced to pattern repetition. This is what you're seeing now. So when I say timelines don't split, nervous systems do, it's because your nervous system is the interface between these two systems, between how you react to your environment, how triggered you are, how activated you are, how non-regulated you are. That's why all of this is about resonance and regulation. These aren't spiritual categories. They are what I'm dubbing and coining nervous system-based perception systems. There are two operating systems emerging inside the same external world. Most of you guys can already start to feel that. So 2026 will be about moving into feeling-based intelligence, somatic-based, body-based intelligence. Okay, no longer are we logic, thinking-based. This is important. It's critical because you can still have an incredibly astute and sharp and quick intellectual prowess without having to abandon the body, okay? Because synthetic organisms and synthetic systems do not have emotional affect. Okay, they're completely void of that. Those who are only in their survivability nature are going to be terrified to their core, and they will lock in and double down into this inverted matrix synthetic system because they want to create one big brain, hive mind, to where they can basically just use frequencies to just tell you what to think. And then you can be controlled. So that's one reality. The other reality is those of us who have access to that fractaled source consciousness inside of us, that intuition, connection, humanity, that thread. We amplify that connection in frequency work. This is what we're doing here, okay? We're deprogramming epigenetic intelligence through mind-body coherence, okay? And it's very fast and it collapses memory. We are a soul moving through memory. And this will be second nature for people 10 years from now. For a larger part of the collective that's moving into organic intelligence. Look out for quantum psychology, quantum biology, quantum everything, okay? It's going to be the interaction of, and the body, the embodiment of ontological systems. Understanding that this reality isn't all the way governed on physics. It's actually completely governed by ontological systems, which is a quantum computational system. And when that comes online fully, it's going to be extraordinarily exciting. Okay, so back to the New Age timeline split of it all. So some people have been saying that they're living, you guys could already been feeling this, that you're living inside of a totally different reality, okay? This is not a timeline split. Hello, because timelines are not fixed. They are all possibilities and probabilities predicated on previous data. So in this way, timelines don't split, fields shift, and they create a new possibility trajectory. So again, nervous system-based perception, introducing a new concept to you guys. NSBP, differentiation. Two people in the same room, under the same conditions, inside the same event, are not experiencing the same reality. Not because the world is splitting, but because their bodies are running different operating systems. Okay? Organic architecture. Let's name them clearly. Organic architecture. The system you stabilize into when your nervous system is coherent enough to source reality internally. It's characterized by inner authority, intuitive pathways, deep relational attunement, field self-organizing intelligence, high tolerance for uncertainty, direct connection to source, signal, or your origin patterning. Okay, you guys have heard me talk about frequency signatures. You will be operating more from that baseline source-coded harmonic. Then you've got a perception that updates in real time, kind of constantly refreshing the cache. And then reality creation as an emergent property of coherence. This architecture is not symbolic or mystical. It is a biological state of regulation plus perceptual bandwidth plus identity integration equals way more fun way to live. Okay, your system creates reality from the inside out, right? Your reality externally bends towards that singularity inside of you. Not technological singularity, which is what the Ray Kurzweil has been talking about, this futurist for a long time, which is one aspect, okay? Technological singularity is the synthetic system that is rapidly online. Okay, this is the biological ID. This is 24/7 surveillance. This is complete and total loss of freedom. Then you have the sovereign system, the organic, that is part of my program, but it's a reflection of organic intelligence, organic systems, where you are sovereign within yourself. You see the reality for what it is. You do not buy into it. You are not disempowered by it. Even if your life doesn't look the way it looks, like how you thought you wanted to live right now, even if it doesn't look like that, you're not disempowered by it. There's just an acceptance of where you are and a curiosity and a passion to re-architect yourself and move forward and continue to gain access and come online, okay? Organic architecture and organic systems is about you being online. Synthetic reality and synthetic systems, you are offline. You have no personal power, okay? In synthetic architecture or synthetic systems, it's dysregulated hyperconditioning and identity fragmentation. You're going to look for algorithmic entrainment, external regulation, like you need cues, approval, scripts, authority, survival-based, pattern repetition, perceptual rigidity. You collapse into, let's say, you have to know, certainty, certain morality. That's going to be another polarity you guys are going to see. Hyper levels of morality. Look at religious indoctrination and these auric fields of belief systems, or any kind of performance. Okay, dependence on systems to tell you what is real. Reality filtered through pre-existing fear loops. This architecture is reactive, not generative. Okay, reality is read from the outside in and then conformed to. So it's not wrong. It's simply the architecture built by trauma, culture, disruption, and chronic survival. So you've got a hyper survival based intelligence system that is rapidly coming online and locked in, and people are going to double down and live there. And now you've got this finally, this architecture we're all going to be able to move into that perceptually solidifies by March, beginning of the actual new year, when spring comes online and it's a full rebirth. So between now and then, it's going to be kind of a slow come up. Okay. We're still going to be pixelating and integrating and kind of buffering at individuated rates. But I know that you guys are already starting to see the nature of the behavior around you and the people around you. You're able to see patterns in a different way already. And that is part of this organic architecture and also the sovereign system in my programs. So what exactly is nervous system based perception? So here's the forensic definition, at least the QP definition, is how your body determines what reality is before your mind interprets it. So it is the perceptual framework created from your regulation state, pattern memory, identity, and your capacity thresholds. So it dictates, it's kind of like the root of your subjective universe, let's say. And if you didn't put nervous system in front of it and you just put your perception, it's too logic based. That's why I have such beef with Joe Dispenza in this way on this particular concept. You can't just change your thoughts. That is another way that you can get locked in to a synthetic type of consciousness if you do not include the nervous system. You have to include the body in all of this. Fascia, cellular intelligence, vital force, nervous-based perception. It's an incredibly critical distinction, okay? It's the root, again, of your subjective universe. It dictates what you notice, what you ignore, what feels safe, what feels possible, what you assume, how you interpret others, what you're able to receive, how you process uncertainty, and what you believe is true. It is the lens through which consciousness meets form. All of this is a perception game, and I've talked about this at length in my book. It's why two people can witness the same event, and one experiences opportunity while the other experiences threat. Same world, different nervous systems, different perceptual bandwidth. Also, how the Mandela effect is even a thing, okay? This is why Earth appears to be splitting, but the split is not physical. It's perceptual, architectural, and somatic. So synthetic versus organic system creation, or organic versus synthetic systems, equals nervous system-based perception divergence. That is like what people call two Earths is simply this. Organic system runs high bandwidth of nervous system-based perception, or a synthetic system runs limited bandwidth of nervous system-based perception. One runs on intuition, coherence, and reality creation. The other one runs on repetition, externally governed intelligence, threat filtered through reality interpretation, okay? It's not metaphysics, it's quite literally the mechanics. And it's all about capacity. So where do I want to go from here? Hopefully that wasn't too much. Okay, so why does 2026 amplify this split? This was kind of a question I asked to my highest self, my higher intelligence with myself as I kind of start to craft these emails and podcasts and things like that and essays. I ask a certain set of questions and then I tune into the answer. So because emergence accelerates the differentiation or accelerates the frequencies tuned towards organic systems, people with more coherence, like those who have been doing frequency work, you guys are going to sense opportunity faster. You're going to stabilize relationships more cleanly. You're going to receive like internal instruction with more clarity. You're going to attract resonance without force. You're going to be able to access new forms of intelligence. You're going to interpret uncertainty as expansion, not collapse. This is really important for a handful of you. You're going to be able to hold the propulsion, okay, the charge of desire. And 2026, I'm going to be with the emergence of the pattern lab. You guys are going to be getting a lot more of this very specific, very highly mechanical kind of quantum intelligence around like coherence architecture, identity architecture. It's all very field mechanics. Pattern lab is all about patterns. It's all about paradox. It's about holding contradiction. It's about collapsing pattern wave function. It's good. But the reason why I say all of that is because you're going to understand the physics of propulsion. Part of AI Atlas was they talked a lot about propulsion and containment systems. And I've talked a lot about catalyzing momentum. You need enough velocity, propulsion, torque to be able to create to be able to dislodge the pattern. Okay, you have to be able to get enough momentum to pull patterns up and out of your memory. Really pull them out of there. 5,000 years old, 6,000 years old, 100,000 years old. Okay, you need a lot to pull that up and out. And the more momentum that you catalyze, the more you pick up speed. You can blow out and burn out. I've done this plenty of times myself. Okay, this is part of the mastery. It's okay. You just get back on the bike, right? Learn, master, keep going. But the propulsion of desire is something I'm going to talk a lot about in the Pattern Lab, the mechanics of it. So you're going to be able to hold more capacity, more charge of desire, which desire plus intention plus capacity equals experience. So people with fragmented perceptions, nervous system-based perception, they're going to cling to old systems. They're going to die unawakened deaths, meaning like very slow, very agonizing body deterioration, cognitive deterioration. Their bodies are just going to go on strike. They're literally not going to be able to let go of the physical form. They're going to double down on dogma and live in this perpetual reincarnation loop, which is what Earth is. Collapse into old fear patterns and control patterns. The intensification of performance, morality, or any kind of inauthenticity and mimicry is going to be through the roof. They're going to continue to outsource perception to algorithms, politics, or narratives, and they're going to interpret uncertainty as threat, always. And it's going to be an absolute experience for them. Like I've told you guys a lot, those of you who were in the Pattern Academy and have been in the work, that I talk about if possibilities when you're looking to clear a pattern for yourself. If you could clear that pattern, what would that feel like for you? You know, you're working with if-based algorithmic potentials or if equations. If I could have a different experience right now, what would that look like? If I could hold the best outcome for myself and then the worst outcome for myself at the same time, I could hold that contradiction. What emerges? That is a physical representation of what emergence is. So the interpretation of threat becomes an absolute. There is no if possibility inside of that. So it's fixed. You will be in the kitchen, let's say, with family members. They physically will not be able to hear you. It will be Charlie Brown, okay? They cannot take in the frequencies of what you're saying. It is physically impossible. And then what will happen is you will not feel the need to explain yourself. You will not defend. You will not argue. You will not justify or explain. That is where true liberation is. You just see them for who they are. You move through the evening. You're fascinated at experiencing what an unawakened perspective looks like. And you're like, wow, I can't be in these fields really anymore. And then you let the field intelligence reorganize you and work through you. And that's how relationships fall away naturally. And that's how they come back into your life naturally. Everything operates from a higher level order when you're more coherent. So you don't have to worry about holding on to people or letting people go. Let the field. Okay. Moving on to what else is coming up for 2026. Okay, you know what I will talk about actually is relational fields, because our relationships are changing a lot. And I'm going to write a Substack on this, and it will be an pretty extensive Substack. So whatever I don't cover here, it's going to be covered in detail there, in addition with some additional mechanics for those who like to really just stretch into a beautiful weekend read. Thank you so much to the Substack folks who are ride and die. Bless it. Okay, I'm going to talk about relational fields and how you're going to experience a split into these fields into two realities. So the two frequencies that are emerging, meaning the bandwidth or the fields that will be incredibly distinct, is fusion-based relating or sovereign-based relating. Fusion is going to be characterized by survival, performance, projection, enmeshment, hyper-instant gratification. Look at what's happening with the masculine right now. Look at what's happening to the feminine right now. So how it's also going to be very, very indicative of the online culture, of intimacy, of how we interact with each other. I think there's going to be an enormous rise in women moving to porn, which is already starting to happen, but it's not talked about as much. I'm not talking about OnlyFans. I'm talking about actually them watching it. And it's going like higher levels of it. So that's what I'm talking about, fusion-based. It's going to be sexual performance on steroids or hyper instant gratification on steroids. The advancement more aspects of dating apps, but aspects of dating apps that are moving towards synthetic conversations, sexting, online relationships, AI-based relationships, inorganic connection to pacify loneliness. The other is sovereign-based relating, which is characterized by more coherence, clarity, capacity, presence, and autonomy, like real autonomy. I have respect for myself. I know who I am. I have boundaries. I have a part of me that wants to keep myself sacred for somebody else. And the other person has that too. And then they come together. And I've talked a lot about, I did a whole series on quantum sex on the Substack. Go and check that out if you haven't already. But there's a merging that happens, and then there's a separating out. And during that merging, it is a total and complete compatible reconfiguration of light bodies, of light body intelligence. And because there's different constitutions, electricity, electromagnetism, and magnetism, those two fields come together and it becomes incredibly accelerating, fully accelerating. You cannot reach your full potential as a woman or a divine in your divine femininity if you do not have a divine masculine partner, or a solid partner that really you can continue to grow with. It's impossible. It's just pure physics. You cannot reach your potential voltage without relating in a sovereign way with other. I will say something else about sovereign-based relating is there's no avoidance, there's no bypassing, there's not connection at the expense of, or there's not connection coming through correction, okay? There's learning how to communicate needs. Both parties have no problem doing that. It means the masculine's not going to run. The masculine learns how to do hard things and gets a lot of self-respect through that. The masculine comes online and finds his North Star, which is learning how to take on responsibility and expanding the capacity for a female to come in and absolutely take him to the next level. And because she knows inherently that there is going to be, the feminine comes in and activates the high holy hell out of a masculine, period, the end. Calls him the fuck higher. Through that remembrance, he builds her a world, and together they're unstoppable. This is energetically what's possible. Even when it's difficult, they get deeper in intimacy through that level of challenge, meaning we need to find the communication and the access to each other to move through this particular challenge, and then create a new 0 point and keep going. Create a new 0 point, you keep going. That's why you infinitely expand out. And it's like you're spiraling together, not like downwards, which you can. Okay, that is toxic love. This is all about fusion-based relating, is trauma bonding, anxious attachment, nonsense, all this, pop meme psychology lore out in the world. Okay, people who have previously tolerated mismatch or any kind of bonding through trauma-related influence will no longer be able to if you're moving into sovereign-based relating. And that will be a man taking a step back, working on himself, working on his body, right? Amplifying that, understanding the way that he works without having to numb through false sexual connections. Women, same thing. If you've noticed, women's appetite to like do it like a man and sleep around like a man and find personal power through sex is very much with the younger generations, but also happening at all generations, or they're just moving into full celibacy. It's like very extreme, because coherence and understanding coherence and doing pattern work and letting the field do the work for you, and then waiting and being able to wait that part out while still having that level of, I guess, say hope, can be a challenge. And I totally understand that. I'm in parts of that myself. So if your intention is sovereignty, then your system won't let you negotiate your way back into distortion. That is what's happening with this level of relating, okay? Fusion-based, sovereign-based. This year, partnerships collapse or deepen. Friendships dissolve or finally make sense. Belovedship becomes possible for those who have completed their memory update. So this was a recent hit for me, and I finally fucking got it, because I knew that belovedship codes were coming online, meaning access to it. Belovedship, when I say that, it's divine partnership, okay? It's a clarity of union, and it means you have moved through enough memory to make divine unionship visible within your field. You can see it and finally be able to hold it. It's a visibility. This is what kind of blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, that's it. Capacity is completely commensurate with how much memory you've moved through and your ability to be able to practice that in the body. So a lot of us have done a lot of work, but the embodiment piece and the recognition piece and the understanding of that is what's coming online for people. Just like relationships are like the last thing on the block for me in terms of memory to go through. Access to self, check. Career, check, right? Like these are the 3 areas. Relationships, last piece on the block for me. And I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Divine union becomes visible when you've completed enough memory update. I was like, mind blown. Holy shit. So frigging relieved right now. Like nervous system settled. Cells came online. Deeply embodied, remember it. Now I fucking get it. It's all, everything you want is already exists in possibility, but it doesn't become visible until all these things come together, right? The capacity, the clarity, the coherence, consciousness, codes, contracts, more C's, et cetera, et cetera. So another theme around work, wealth, and purpose will shift from like trading time for money into pure signal. So I've been told over and over again, look, you're in a decompression period, you're in a realignment period, don't worry. The collective will be able to hear you, feel you, and take you in. They will receive your signal. You would just be found. You don't have to work that hard. Don't worry about, the TikTok ban or like having to do this, that, and the other. Yes, there will be some efforting if you want to be able to experience that. But trust, this is from labor to signal. This is where everyone is moving. Remember, it's all about moving through enough memory and then having the body experience to be able to hold that for things to manifest and materialize without having to sacrifice. There's a lot of people out there that are making a fuck ton of money online, and look at what it's costing them. Because if you haven't seen it yet, you will. Trust. Emergence is the new stability, y'all. It's going to be a deep exhale for us all. And I'm very much looking forward to that. I feel like that might be a good place to stop. And I'm going to expand again more deeply, but I will leave you with this question. Every era has a central question, okay? 2025 was betting max on yourself. How much can I lean in? How much can I let go? 2026 is asking you, can your system hold the version of you you've been becoming? Can your system hold the version of you of what you truly desire? If yes, or if you're curious about the yes, then you're moving towards emergence. If no, if you're not sure, if your body braced, then you're going to recalibrate until the answer becomes a yes. Either way, you must know that you're not behind, you haven't regressed, you're buffering. So, pick an area that you want to focus on in 2026. Self, home, partnership, purpose, opportunity, stability, visibility, wealth. Pick one. And not because you're forced to pick it, but because you want to see your frequency outrun your former life and your reality catch up to it. So, the year of emergence is not really a forecast in this way. I'll say it's an invitation. Your frequency of who you are becoming will outrun your former life. Don't worry. It will out-efficient it. It will outpace it. It will be like an iPhone of 7 years ago. It will not work with the new iOS that you're calling in. Your reality will catch up. That gap will close. It is physics. This is the physics of becoming. This is the prelude to what's to come for 2026. And I will, again, thank you for listening. Re-listen to this. Take notes. There's lots of codes in here. And there will be an extensive Substack essay on this. Blessings, and I will see you in a couple weeks.